yoga has blessed us with many good things. Number one, yoga pants.
Yoga pants.
Yoga pants.
Tenths Racecraft.
Randy, the leaves are changing. It's episode 10, which means
Season 2.
Season 2. It means that snow's around the corner.
It's starting to get cold.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to wear a sweater.
Time to layer up.
Yeah.
Some of us come with a sweater already. But anyway, so it's that time of year where we need to start thinking about not having fun and putting away and being prepared to be safe. That's kind of number one.
I'll be safe.
Safe. Be safe. Either store the toys, change the tires on. If you don't have the luxury of owning more than one car, then you have to look at winterizing your car.
Yeah. Rule of thumb.
Yeah.
7 degrees is, I like to think of it as the average, because it's sometimes overnight you get, it'll be cold during the day. It'll be up to, the perfect example this week, it's been up to like 18 during the day.
Yeah, and like 6 degrees at night.
But when the majority of the temperature is 7 degrees Celsius or below, it's time to start switching your tires.
Yeah.
And now primarily it's for safety's sake, but if that is not enough of a motivator for you, in all honesty, that's the most efficient time to change it if you're going to be talking about the wear of your tires too.
I guess we have to break it down. Because like there's a lot of people that drive, like really nice, reasonable cars, and they come factory equipped with all-season tires.
Yeah.
And all-season technology has come a long way. I have actually, I've been lazy last winter, and I just kept my all seasons on, and I was actually kind of impressed in the winter, because I do have a set of dedicated winter tires. So I have an idea of what it feels like between the both. Now, keep in mind, if your car comes with like a strict summer tire, like a PS4S or a Super Sport or something like that, you definitely don't want to drive that in the winter at all.
There's summer only, and then there's all season.
Yeah, that's the summer only.
Yeah.
So, on a scale of 1 to 10, where 0 would be the grip levels in the snow of like a R888 or R compound tire. There's no grip at all.
Like a semi-stuck.
Yeah, a summer tire will have a grip level of about 1. It's pretty much 0.
Doesn't exist.
An all season, I would put it at about 5 out of 10. It's enough to get you around, but I don't think it's like the safest way to, if you do have the money and the means, definitely get a dedicated winter tire. Like a dedicated winter tire, I would say would be more like an 8, whereas like a studded rally tire would be a 10.
Yeah,
right.
You're
so
never
that's the
gonna have
extreme.
a studded
You're not
tire,
going to have
yeah.
that, but between an 8 and a 5 is a significant difference, and it's a difference of you in an emergency situation stopping the car maybe 6 or 8 feet shorter, which could cause you a frontal collision, right?
6 feet. I mean, that's enough. We talk about tire tread and all that stuff for summer compound stuff, and a lot of that carries over into the winter stuff. So if you look at that in season 1, I think it was episode 2, might have been episode 1. Either way, the thing is Randy's right. An all-season tire can, especially when new, it's got more tread depth.
Yeah.
It works really, really well. If we're talking about this is your 4th year on your all-seasons, you might as well be riding around on a hockey puck.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah.
The best way that I've heard and summarized is that an all-season, it's in the name, an all-season is technically a no-season tire.
Yeah.
Because it's not dedicated to just summer, so it's not going to be your best performance tire on the track. Okay. It's not going to be, for example, a lot of cars now come with eco tires. Same thing. They're dedicated to certain technology to have a car have better gas mileage. And then a winter tire is dedicated to being good, not necessarily just in snow and siphoning out snow and stuff like that, but actually ice. It's the compound and the fact that if you're picturing a moving scale, it's almost like you wear a t-shirt. A t-shirt's good for 15 degrees to 35 degrees, and a certain sweater is maybe good for 0 to 10, and then your winter jacket's good from like minus 20 to plus 10 kind of thing, right? So you're just kind of shifting the rubber compounds along. So it's not like you can't rock it all season.
It's also the formulation of the rubber too.
Yeah,
so it's not even.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
It's not even just the cleats and the design and the grip itself. It's the fact that the rubber is actually malleable, and it's designed to actually work in the cold.
Yeah.
Cold.
Freezing.
Number one thing in terms of safety and cost savings is just being smart about choosing when you drive. If you have tires that are really shot, Maybe don't drive when it's really blustery out or really icy. Make that decision.
Yeah.
But we're here to talk to you about maybe inputting a little bit of money. And right off the bat, I want to say that I think by having a dedicated summer tire and a dedicated winter tire, even if you don't have two sets of wheels, you're technically prolonging the life of both sets of tires anyway.
That's true.
Right? And if you sell the car or if you move beyond, you might even be able to sell one of those sets. Like I'm currently in the process of selling, I sold actually winter tires, what am I talking about? On Kijiji, and got a decent amount of money back.
You got to haggle, otherwise they don't respect you.
And a lot of people are like, okay, I'm just going to buy 4 17-inch winter tires and I'm going to peel my all seasons off my rims and then mount the other ones on. Now you could do that, and I think you could probably get away with it maybe twice, but after that, the bead on the tire really isn't meant to be taken off and put on more than 2 or 3 times. The tire is going to start leaking. It's very difficult to stretch that tire with a machine and have a bead, which is actually kind of a precision seal.
100%.
It's actually quite...
the bead of the tire is what you don't see. It's what goes inside the lip of the wheel, like the rim. And that is tight. That's why you have to go to a tire machine. That is the hardest force of getting the tire on.
Yeah, and you can get a set of cast alloy wheels for probably about $160 a wheel now. I mean, so for $500, $550, you can get 4 16 or 17-inch wheels. You're probably going to want to go with like a good quality winter tire. Sorry.
Well, summer too.
Yeah.
More time winter.
Yeah, summer for sure. So a name brand one. You can get the Blizzaks. The Blizzaks aren't really known for performance, but I'm thinking more like Michelin PA.
Michelin X-Ice and Blizzaks.
Yeah, the Soto Zero.
Very well.
The Pirelli Soto Zeros.
Yeah.
Those are the Continental Extreme Winters are also good.
Viking Contact.
Yeah, Hakkapelitas. Any of those Nokian tires, they're also really good. If you have just a regular commuter car, so my daily driver is a 530e. It's a plug-in hybrid X-Drive, and I've gone ahead and went with the Asian no-name brand tires, and I am blown away by them. They're extremely quiet. They're extremely grippy. They have amazing grip in the slush and the ice and everything. Would I go fast on them? No. And would I tear around on-ramp? Absolutely not. But
this is something that when we talked about the summer tires, we're talking about tires where you're cruising around. You may be going over the speed limit if you're cruising on the highways or you're going to the track. That's where those tires seem to fall apart in terms of quality. But just from what we've seen and experienced.
You have to do a bit of research because they can get really loud, some of the really cheap ones.
You're trading stuff off. Some of them will look like some of them actually are like models of Continentals or Blizzaks, but then they're less ply or a different rubber compound. So you're trading off. It's like anything else. The less money you spend, there's going to be certain points of the tire, either noise or longevity or compound or whatever, that's going to go down. But
cheap is cheap.
But
overall, it's still better than rocking a summer or an all season.
And there's a huge variance in price. They are about half the price of like a Pirelli Soto Zero. So there's a big difference in the price. So if if you want to go with a $700 package or a $1,000 package, right? If you want to fork out that extra $300 to get the Michelin or the Pirelli,
the way I've always
wouldn't be a bad
it,
idea if you're driving a $50,000 car, but
it's all relative.
I put my foot in my mouth.
Some like to put a foot in their mouth.
Hey, no, you know what? I saw it. I couldn't believe it. Actually, at the end of last winter, I saw a Porsche. What's the sedan again? Panamera.
Yeah.
With like 22s and summer tires, and it was the dead of, just at the tail end of winter. And I'm thinking to myself, if you can have a Panamera tires, something guaranteed that person was a risk to themselves and to other people.
Yeah, I was going to say those tires are better than summers or even an all season. To be honest with you,
there's a couple of key nuances that people may not know about in terms of winter tires. First of all, wider is not necessarily better. Okay.
Yeah, no, actually narrower is better.
Narrower is better. Yeah. It cuts through the snow. You'll see if you look up a rally car, Google rally cars right now, when they're on snow, it's like tiny, with tires.
They call them pizza cutters.
Yeah. So what does that mean? It means if you go down a size, and the second part of that is usually you can actually go down a rim size as long as you're clearing your brakes.
Yeah, so I was running, I had my old 528, I was running a 17-inch with a 215 tire on there.
Yeah, versus running.
Check the load rating though. Just because it's narrow tire doesn't mean the load rating. It's a hefty car, but make sure the load rating is okay, but you can run a narrower tire, 215, 225.
That's the next part, is you can save some money there by running a smaller wheel, a smaller tire, a narrower tire. You just want to make sure that your circumference is within 1%, the circumference or diameter is within 1% of your original tire.
Yeah.
I recommend 11thenstires.ca for their calculator. If you just go to tools and they have a calculator, I've been using that for years for summer tires or winter tires, either way, figuring out the diameters and stuff, but also figuring out offsets and stuff like that too. So I recommend that website if you haven't come across it. There's all sorts. That's my go-to. Steel rims, aluminum rims, whatnot. Steel rims are the best place to save money, and they come in some massive sizes now too.
Yeah, they get really heavy though.
They do get heavy, of course.
I would not recommend anything over 16-inch on the steel wheel.
Okay.
Like I've sold 17-inch steel wheels, and I was blown away by it. Like picking up this rim, like, okay, this is not a good idea.
Yeah.
You know, like an alloy wheel nowadays is $160 for a fast alloy wheel, and it's like $130 for a steel wheel. I mean, we're just trying to save the money, right?
I'm trying to encourage the fact that, you know what, you can on the other end save money by going this route. So if you buy alloy wheels, even if you don't get a car that can fit those same wheels in the future, which you potentially will, if you have continually buy BMWs or continue to buy Hondas or whatnot.
How many cars?
There's a good chance that it will fit your next car, but there's a huge aftermarket for it in terms of Kijiji and Facebook Marketplace and stuff like that, and even used rim wholesalers will buy that stuff.
If you're also someone that tends to go through cars like underwear, like every 2 years get a new, even a whole different brand of car, you can look into a wheel with what they call an EFS. So it's an EFS system where they actually have plugs.
You got plugs.
Plugs that actually will change the offset from a 5114 to 5120 to 5130, and you can just buy the EFS lugs that actually will change that wheel from a different from a 5114 to 5112.
Yeah,
so little things like that, you know, do your research. You can save your money in the long run. You don't have to sell that winter tire package with that car. You can actually keep the package, change it to a different offset, and you know, you're happy. Also, it seems like a lot of the German manufacturers are going towards a universal bolt pattern. BMWs were 5120 and the Audis were 5114, I think.
23, yeah.
Yeah, and 5112 for Mercedes. And it seems like everyone's just going to 5112 now. So that's like the G-Bot. So it's basically 2018 and newer BMWs. Older snow tire package from like an E chassis car or an F chassis. It's not going to fit the new Gs. So keep that in mind.
One little fact tidbit that I remember, I believe it was Tire Rack that did the test, or Car and Driver. Someone did the test where they compared, you know, all tires, all seasons, summer and winter, in all seasons and all situations. And the winter tire was actually better than the all-season tire in all aspects, with the exception of pure dry. So in the rain, a winter tire is actually really good too. So we've covered tires. That's pretty thorough. The only thing I'd say, just to kind of go back to the beads and stuff like that, obviously the more often you're changing a tire as well on a wheel, the more likely you're going to scratch it, or whoever's doing it might scratch it, might damage it. Whoops. When we talk about the bead, it's the seal of the tire against the rim, and we always think, oh, a puncture. That's unfortunate to have a puncture in your tire. You can very easily leak air from the bead.
It's almost impossible to repair.
Be aware. If you don't have a puncture, maybe that's why you have a slow leak. Okay, so the next part, actual storing of a car.
Yeah, so if you have a car, a summer car, and you're going to store it.
You know what? We're going to go off something that him and I disagree on.
Okay. For
years now.
Yeah.
I put my car on jacks, which I know Randy doesn't think is a good idea for the suspension.
I've been burned by it. That's why. What happens is, now this is because I'm running monotube shock. If you have a monotube shock that are synonymous with Bilstein, BC Racing, you know, I had Fortunato, Broadway Statics on mine specifically, Hot Bits, which was the ones that were in question. A monotube shock, the construction of it has a very high pressure gas inside it, right? Now, when the shock, if we're talking about a shock that's 5 or 6 years old, the seals tend to wear if it's like, you know, optimal range of where the suspension is sitting all the time. And the seal wears, and you know, the shock shaft also wears in that area. Now, when you jack up the car, you know, and you have the full suspension on the droop, now the actual seal is in a completely different range of where it usually operates. And, you know, if you have tremendous pressure in the shock itself, it will find its way out. Yeah. So that's what happened. So I jacked my car up a few years ago, and every shock pissed oil. And then I went to go get them rebuilt, and the guy's like, yeah, you can't do that. Yeah. You can jack them up, but make sure the suspension's under, under load, right? So you can just put the cinder blocks or jack stands underneath the control arm so that the suspension's still loaded up. If you don't want your tires, flat spotting. So.
And that's kind of where we're at here. So I will admit that in recent years I don't do that anymore. You see, it's mainly because yoga has blessed us with many good things. Number one, yoga pants.
Yoga pants.
Number two is yoga mats.
And good flexibility.
Wink.
Yeah. Anyway, if you flat spotting is the only reason why I would jack up a car. Okay, it's the flat spotting of the tire. Tire sits all winter long. You flat spot your tire. Bad news, baby. So you may not have that problem, but I've seen plenty of people who do this.
I pump it up to 55 pounds.
Yep.
I put the thing on a piece of rubber, But
that's what I mean. Yoga mat or rubber underneath the tire.
Anything like that.
Yeah,
and that's it.
Yeah.
You don't have to.
So,
and even if I did flat spot the tires, they usually run true after it warms up, and they just it's all pliable, right? Okay. Like the flat spot goes away.
I've had some bad flat spots. Let's put it this way.
In my sense, in my
cheap tires, bad flat spots. Okay. I'll tell you that. Also, if you're for example, I had my car sitting on the semi-slicks over the winter. Same thing. I didn't want to even bother figuring that out if it's going to flat spot on that rubber.
You could buy something called a tire cradle. You can get them on Amazon. Just Google it. Yeah. And there's basically these it's just like a cradle, and it's a piece of plastic that you kind of drive up and your tire sits inside. That's the best thing because it disperses the weight of the car throughout the entire cradle, right?
As does a yoga mat. Just cut up a yoga mat and put it underneath your tires. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
I'm telling you. It works better. I've checked. Have you seen the price of those cradle things? Not worth it.
Yeah, you're right. The other thing too, if your car is stored on a concrete surface, the concrete tends to absorb oil.
Yep.
If you've ever had an oil leak on concrete, you'll notice a couple months later it's gone because the concrete absorbs the oil, right? Now there's natural oils in the rubber. You don't want tires sitting on concrete on the same spot. You're going to dry out the tire on that spot, and that'll actually create a dry spot and a flat spot.
And it's not just
have something between the concrete. Asphalt's a different story, but concrete specifically.
That's not just for when your car's sitting in the garage. When you are storing your tires as well, on and off the car.
Exactly.
Some guys will say don't keep them on the sidewalls for that reason.
Yeah.
Same thing happens if you just be careful. That's why it's better to store them off the ground or on a stand.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind too. Even a layer of cardboard in between.
Yeah.
Anything to kind of help. These are all money saving, time lengthening for all of these products, right?
Now a lot of people will throw in a fuel line stabilizer, a fuel stabilizer. I don't think you have to do that.
I do that.
You don't have to do that.
I do.
It's just overkill.
That's for when you're storing things for 2-3 years. For 3 months, it's not going to make a difference. The fuel's not going to go bad. It'll lose its potency, but it's not going to go bad in 3 months. That's total overkill.
It's overkill.
Just make sure you fill the tank right to the brim.
Yep.
Right? That you should do, but don't bother with any of this stuff.
Filling it to the brim has to do with moisture in the tank.
Yeah.
So definitely do that. I've heard mixed opinions on the fuel stabilizers. I use it. A lot of people will say that, closer to the end of the season, like right now, Petrocan in particular, and some of the other ones, they'll start to actually have a winter gas formulation for that moisture and all that stuff that comes along with it. So you might actually be pumping a stabilizer into your gas already. Anyway, I've seen both. I don't think it really makes a difference. You're right. If it's not a long period of time, it's not going to make a huge difference. People do that in their lawnmowers and stuff like that because it really does sit for a long time.
Well,
it's a small motor, it's carbureted. It's a whole
up the carbs,
yeah, it's a whole different thing.
I've never used it, and I've stored my cars for 20 years, and there's no problem.
So speaking of which, here's a common one.
Yeah.
Should you start your car every so often in the middle of the night?
Absolutely not.
No, definitely not. No. Don't do it.
let sleeping dogs lie.
Just don't.
The worst engine wear on a car is during cold start. So why would you cold start it and create all that wear over and then you're going to have condensation in the exhaust system because you're not actually going to drive it. You're just going to let it idle for 15 minutes. That's just, you're causing rust internally in the exhaust. Just a bad idea. Just don't.
Just don't.
Yeah.
Throw it on a trickle charger or disconnect the battery and pull the battery out, and just leave it. Call it a day. That's it.
Also, it doesn't matter. I don't care if you miss it. You want to hear it. Don't do it.
Yeah, don't do it.
Don't do it.
Just don't.
Also, if you store it outside or in a barn or somewhere, you might want to just throw some mothballs in the engine bay, stuff some things in the exhaust so that rodents don't start burrowing through there and looking for stuff. We've had a lot of customers come in and the under hood insulation is all torn up from a squirrel going in there and they just
squirrels, mice.
They wreak a havoc on engine harness here.
Yeah.
Right?
Some cars are actually, it's funny, their wiring Or actually certain animals will actually be drawn to the wiring for some reason or another. He did quickly touch on get a trickle charger. You can get ones they start at like $50.
Yeah, battery tender, C-Tech, all these people, they make battery tenders.
You can have a cheap one, but pretty much all of them now do it where they're kind of like your modern cell phone, where they'll charge it to a certain point and they'll kind of pulse and just kind of keep it going. So it's more efficient. It makes more efficient for charging, but also lengthens the not the cycle, but the
longevity.
The longevity, thank you. The longevity of the battery itself by doing it that way. So, or the other option is just to disconnect the battery. If you're storing in a garage, it's very cool or not insulated. Some people will bring the battery inside.
Yep.
That's to your own comfort level.
Yeah, if you're going to cover your car.
Oh yes.
Like cover the car, I close everything. I close the sunroof and all the windows and everything. Some people what's your take on that? Crack the window, crack the sunroof.
So I
don't like insects getting in my car. So
I don't, but I do something a little bit overkill with my car is I use a little bit of lubricant on my seals where the door and stuff is. Because my car, the Z is about 20 years old, and it's a lot cheaper for me to maintain the seals than it is to try and buy a new seal and put it in. Small plastics and stuff like that. That's okay. That's the number one thing I'll mention. If you're going to do any work on your car through the winter and stuff like that, I discovered this. Plastics really hate the cold and are a lot between sun and cold. They're a lot more prone to cracking. So it's not a bad idea to detail your car. Put it away clean. Don't put it away dirty.
Yeah.
Right. Put it away clean. And then the whole point of a cover is to keep out moisture and keep it clean underneath as well. Cracking the window. Every car has vents. You know when you see someone smash their car and you see like there's black vents behind the bumper, that's into the cabin and into the car anyway. So like a car is vented anyway, right? And a bug will find its way in the car no matter, I don't know how sometimes, but there's always a spider in like one random spot. You're like, God, how'd you get in there?
Spider-Man does whatever a spider can.
Yeah.
Fucking
spiders. If you can, I would say change the oil before you store the car.
Yep.
Just to have a fresh oil, at least when some people go a little overboard and they change oil again in the spring. I think you're wasting oil in there.
It's overkill.
But in order to have, don't have all the contaminants in the oil just sitting in the engine. Just flush it out and get some fresh oil in there before you put it away.
Oil, I believe, has a shelf life for efficiency, and it just depends. There's a big difference between if you're rocking your winter beater or your daily versus, let's say, a car that you run on the track. You might want to have that fresh oil, just the same way you might change your brake fluid in the spring right away. Point is that stuff, just make sure that you're maintaining your car properly in advance. A good oil change before winter is a good idea.
So I think that's good for storing. So let's talk about the people that are actually going to drive their cars in the winter. You don't have to have a massive suitcase in the trunk.
Suitcase?
But you should have some things in there just in case you spin out of control and you're in the ditch and you're up north and there's nobody around. And make sure you have a blanket. You can have yourself one of those booster pack of lithium ones. You can get them now. They'll power your cell phone for like a day and a half, or they'll actually boost your car too.
You know what? If you're watching this and you don't have one yet, tell your spouse to put it on the Christmas list.
Christmas list.
Santa. And there's from, like we said, $50 up to like $200-$300 depending on what you want.
So I have actually purchased several of them, and I've had no luck with like the $50 to $80 booster packs, the little ones. They're just crap. They're fine if you want to as a battery booster for your phone, backup, but they've never have enough juice to actually get a car going. So I find I have to like spend the $200-$300 on like the no-code, the sizable one, and that one has lasted me years. We actually use it at the shop, and it's like that. And we use it at the shop, and we've been using it for years. Actually, I have the one bigger than that. It's like $350. This one's probably like
I think it's like the 150, 120 range.
So this is enough for.
This one's enough for the most average person. It charges your cell phone. It has lights. I've used it at the track where I've been camping overnight, and I charge my phone. And there's still plenty of juice.
I think there's a flashlight too. So I was going to say, make sure you have a flashlight, a blanket, maybe one of those, and.
That's the basics. If you really want to get advanced, maybe a pocket knife if you need something, or your standard kind of survival stuff. But I think a blanket is number one. Some people like to throw kitty litter or a little sand in the back in case you get stuck. You can throw it on the snow.
You're going to get one of those little shovels that fold out so you can actually kind of dig yourself out. of a situation. So it doesn't hurt to
have that.
Yeah.
Snow brush.
Oh yeah,
that's,
for sure.
If you don't, that's not part of safety. You should just have that in your car all the time.
And you should always have 1 or 2 extra jugs of the washer fluid.
Yep. Randy, what's the difference between summer washer fluid and winter washer fluid?
Well, obviously the freezing point. Yeah, so make sure you get the winter stuff in there. Minus 40 at least.
There's a whole reason. Yeah. It's not a scam.
Yeah.
It's like a $2 or $4 cost for any of these bottles anyway.
Yeah.
It's just the freezing point. You don't want to have a jug of this stuff frozen in the back of your car.
I do like to change the wipers before the winter. I mean, they're not very expensive. It's like $60 for a pair.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference.
It makes a big difference. Yeah, change that. I like right about now where it's still not too cold out, I'll go ahead and do a Rain-X application on my windshield also. That actually saves a lot of winter washer fluid because I'll just use the road spray and the Rain-X will really get it pretty clean.
A lot of people at this time of year will start oil spraying. What are your thoughts?
I think that was a good thing back in the 80s and 70s and 80s and 90s, but now a lot of the cars, like, the bodies they're zinc coated. You know what I mean? A lot of composites, a lot of plastics and stuff. Yeah. I know, us as a shop, it's an absolute disaster working on, coated cars. If you were to go ahead and do it, I would say get the oil-based one. Don't get like the thick wax-based undercoating. The oil-based stuff tends to go everywhere. And if you're going to get it done, you want it to go everywhere. Look, if you had like an E36, E36s are still plagued with a lot of rust in E30s, but you're going to get surface rust on a lot of like the steel on the control arms and some of the brake lines and stuff like that.
Yeah,
but
you can't really help that.
Yeah, you can't really help that. And I don't think undercoating is even going to help that, to be honest with you, because that kind of stuff will just like... It'll come off.
It's still debated because it's still, in some cases, it does really work. Trucks in particular, I think it's still very useful for like pickups and stuff like that. But I used to do it all the time. For me, my experience comes from my first car. I did it every year. Yeah. And I still had to have the car repainted 3 times because of surface rust and stuff and like in places that were sprayed. So it's debatable.
Yeah, like it also depends on, do you plan on keeping the car 20 years? Because that's really when that will really help. It's probably 20 years out. Most people just go through cars every 4 or 5 years, and you're not going to see rust creep up in 4 years between an oil spray and non-oil sprayed, right? Yeah, majority of the cars are aluminum anyways underneath the suspension components and stuff.
So from that, I mean, just make sure your heater's working.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it. Yeah. Standard maintenance is standard maintenance, doesn't matter.
I would say battery too. Like, when you go for that autumn or fall oil change at wherever shop you go to, ask them to do a battery test. They will have a tester that actually they can test the battery and see what the condition of the battery is. A lot of times you may not even know the battery could be at like 50 or 60% and the car will still start. It'll still start until that one cold spell.
So cold.
Where it's like -8 or -10 and you get out and it's like click, click, click. And you're like, what happened?
My car won't start.
So that battery that was starting with 50% charge, and when it was +10, it's just not going to cut it.
On the other end of things, you may be looking into getting a second car. That's what we've talked about. This is a smaller group of people.
Yeah. Just get a beater.
In some cases, you may have, if you're watching us, you may have already been modifying your car to the point where you're like, I don't really want to drive this in the winter anymore.
Yeah.
At that point, welcome to the world of beater cars.
Or trucks.
I don't get a truck for the winter. I'll tell you
I know.
right now.
I know.
No way.
I got a friend that bought a Jeep.
The Jeep.
I lifted Jeep YJ with 35s on it and like, oh yeah, I got it for the winter. Later, after the winter, he's like, it's the worst decision.
Jeep.
Those mudders don't work at all in the winter, at all. And then the lockers and the 4-wheel drive, it's absolutely like atrocious.
What everyone forgets is, and we should have said this with the winter tires, is the winter is not necessarily about getting going. It's about stopping. And traction.
Yeah. All-wheel drive is not going to help you stop better or go around a corner better.
Not.
It'll help you pull out of a light quicker, but what's that going to do?
So here's rear-wheel drive in the winter. What are your thoughts? Is it as bad as everyone says?
No. That's my choice. Yeah. I've always had rear-wheel drive. My new car is X-Drive now, so
we'll see.
I might just get an X-Delete.
We'll see if he sees the light.
Maybe I'll just X-Delete it.
Delete.
It doesn't matter. When you're shopping for a winter beater, the nice part is you don't have to worry about if the AC works. If you're buying a winter beater, just be careful. If you're going really low budget, still do your due diligence. Don't be stupid.
Yeah.
You
Just
need a
get
car that runs.
something that runs. Just still put the snow tires on there.
Yeah.
You probably end up be able to get 14 or 15 inch tires.
Yeah.
Because I'm guessing you're not going to be spending a fortune on a beater.
Yeah. The thing is you're looking
I think
completely different.
I think front wheel drive would make a perfect beater.
100%.
Like just get a Camry or an Accent or something.
Storage of your tires.
Mm-hmm.
Plenty of storage exists everywhere.
Yeah.
The further you go from the center of Toronto, the cheaper it is.
Yeah.
So just be aware of that. There are clubs that will, have programs and stuff like that. Your tire shop most likely has storage already.
Yeah. Some of them come to your house and pick up the tires and take them. Some will even change the tires in your driveway for you, like a mobile service, and take them to storage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to advise that, just a cautionary. When I was living in Collingwood, there was a tire shop that would, let's put it this way, they didn't have any lifts or ramps or anything like that, and they would just jack up your car, change your tire quick, and job done. And I found that because they were doing that, they were a lot quicker and a lot less delicate. Not everyone torques a wheel. Some people just ugga-dugga the crap out of it until it's tight. You want to have someone who takes the time to do it right. Mm-hmm. Be safe out there.
Yeah, we'll see you next month. We're not sure yet. We'll figure out what topic.
Yeah. Let us know. Shoot us a comment. What do you want to talk about?
Yep.
Take care.
Awesome. Thanks.